people have told me my whole life, "Adele, how come you're so lucky? Why do all these things happen to you? Why do you always get exactly what you want?" You have access to this energy at this time. It is more readily available to spark off whatever beautiful realities you're ready to create in your life. And that's not something I would have thought during this time. Hey everyone. I'm coming to you today from a beautiful new reality in my life. And I know that the majority of my videos have been very scripted, edited up to this point. And knowing me, I will probably edit this video a bit, but I kind of want to be more candid and just really kind of dive into the things that are kind of on our minds right now. The world is a much different place than it was 4 months ago. So I kind of want to connect with you guys a bit on that. Talk a bit about what's been going on for me. I want to hear from you guys all around the world, what's been going on for you. Leave that in the comments below. Let's all support each other. I've been seeing some YouTubers who are otherwise very helpful people and who have a similar message and a similar mindset that I have, telling people, oh, it's the new world order, it's time to get out, get out and don't go live off the grid and start a new life. I think a lot of people, they don't have those options that they're able to see in this moment. And so I kind of just wanted to come on here and talk about like my experience and how this reality that I have came about for me. As some of you know, my ideal life that I've always talked about has been away from society, very far away from society. I don't have any kind of dreams of a fancy house or fancy cars or anything like that. To me, nature and privacy and natural beauty is a luxury of all luxuries in this world. And that is where I'm staying now. I'm staying on a beautiful, wild, wonderful, huge, isolated farm. But when this whole thing first started, I was in a really, really dark place. I felt very alone. As I mentioned in the video I did, around that time, you can tell that, I had gained weight because I was cooking all the food I'd prepped, even though it was not necessary for me to do so. I felt like, to be frank, I felt like the end of the world had come and I was just gonna be out there winging it on my own. But the thing is, for those of us who have lived with trauma, those of us who have not had family support throughout our entire lives, we have kind of been in the end of the world. There have been so many times when our world has ended and the sun still rose again the next morning. So I have been through a whole range of emotions since this first began. But one thing I talked about on social media, I mentioned how, I think it was at the beginning of April, I was walking down the street and I had a beautiful sundress on, and I was going to pick up some things from my garden, and the sun was beaming down on my face, and the sun on me always feels like a message or a hug from God. And I just enjoyed that beautiful day. And in that moment, I kind of made a promise to myself. I said that despite the fact that I was at the lowest point in my life, I felt completely hopeless and alone, I said that I pledged to myself that the next 6 months are going to be the most beautiful and best time of my life. Now think about that. That's kind of a strange thing to pledge to yourself during the most difficult and worst time of your life, when the whole world is kind of on fire. But that's the thing about working with reality. That's the thing about being a modern magician. which I'm realizing, and I have been coming into the realization of this, looking back over the many years of my life, how that's the archetype. That's one of the strongest archetypes throughout my life, is the magician. I think I could also fit definitely some of the archetypes for warrior and orphan. And that might be something that might be fun to talk about in the future. But I basically knew that if there was ever a time to use my powers, it was now. It was a do or die moment for me, and I needed to call in all forces. I needed to step up my game with reality, my life, and my emotional state, and I couldn't mess around with it. And so I made that come true. And it came true over and over and over again. And the signs started showing up smaller and getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then I find myself here in the middle of nowhere, the most beautiful place I have probably ever seen in my life. And I am surrounded by just the most amazing, inspiring, hardworking, kind, welcoming people, and it happened really quickly. But I want to talk about the different signs that I've been seeing that kind of led me to this place and this current reality I'm in. Because 4 months ago, when I made that promise to myself, it did not look at all like this was going to be my reality. And I remember specifically realizing that there had been a number of choice points throughout my life where things could have gone really, really wrong for me. I've mentioned to you guys that I've been brought back to life 3 times already, but there have been a number of other instances where if I had made just some other decision, something different might have been the outcome, drastically different. And I knew 4 months ago at the start of this pandemic, when I was in the worst mental state ever that I had ever been in my entire life, and trust me, that's extremely bad for me to be able to say that. I was in my food addiction very heavily. I was reliant on a job that I had initially gotten when I moved to the city, and I was so happy to have. But at this point now, it's just become another nightmare job, right? And then with all the rules from the pandemic. I was living in a place that was so cute and perfect. I had like tons of room for my garden, and I had like peace and quiet for the most part. And it was like this cute neighborhood, right? So it's this upscale neighborhood, but I still managed to find something that suits my frugal tastes. But yet, I find myself surrounded on both sides by men that remind me of the boyfriends my mother had when I was growing up, right? So they're guys that you walk by them in the morning, you say hello to your neighbors, and they smell like alcohol. They're out there smoking day and night, so it's coming into my apartment. And the thing is that like they don't even really fit in with the building that I live in or the neighborhood that I live in. It's like there are these 2 anomalies, and they happen to be exactly on either side of me. So I'm really thinking, something is going on here. Someone is giving me a very clear message, and this is the message that I'm getting very clearly, is that this is not for me, and I need to leave. But just like how it was when I first left the mountains to move to the city, I was very hesitant. I was thinking, I'm not ready to leave what I have for what else I know is out there. Like when I moved to Calgary, I moved multiple times. I had so many issues when I first moved there, whether it was, moving into an apartment and they start construction the next day right outside my window to the point where it was so loud, I felt like it was damaging my hearing. I had one place where I had a maintenance man sending me texts at 10 a.m. at night saying that I'm sexy. This is a guy who has the keys and access to my apartment. I've had the constant problems with the smokers and the marijuana smoke coming in, and the city has definitely gotten worse since this all started. I have a number of stories to tell Some that are really heartwarming and some that are really terrible, of course. But after I made that pledge to myself, I started seeing signs that things were coming true. Probably about a month ago, I had a day that seemed like heaven had kind of seeped through into reality. Have you had a day like that before? Where you're just thinking, how is any of this real right now? My best friend had come to stay and visit me. And we were going for a bike ride. And we were sitting out on the lawn as well. So we were kind of spending some time out in my neighborhood. And I think this was right around when they made masks mandatory in Calgary. And so the fear was up. Everyone was, the anxiety was up. And we went out in the evening, the early evening, so the sun was still out. And there were people everywhere. And this is a really beautiful neighborhood. It's got this beautiful outdoor rec center, with tennis courts and basketball hoops. And it's got this beautiful church. And there were families and teenagers and elderly people. And none of them were wearing masks. And they were just walking up and down the streets. They were playing in the tennis courts. They were riding their bikes. They were walking their dogs. And they all just seemed really happy and content to be out there and to be together. And I remember I had stopped watching the news. But every once in a while I would still kind of peek on things on Reddit to see how things were going, and all I see is racism everywhere, protests, cops killing black people, And so it makes you think like, oh my God, we're living in a place where you can't go jogging, you're going to get shot, right? That's what they want you to believe, right? They don't ever tell you the full story behind these things or how rare these incidents actually are. So, like I've said before, definitely don't listen to what the news is telling you about humans and society. Go out in your neighborhood, talk to your neighbors, form community groups, start things, talk to people, and see, let that be your news. That day in my neighborhood, I saw successful, happy families and people of all different races, smiling at each other, having fun, enjoying the beautiful weather, taking good care of their pets and their neighborhood. And so we had this wonderful bike ride, and we just spent some time together, and we were going up and down the streets, and we were laughing, and we were smelling flowers, and it was just the most perfect and beautiful day, and it made me feel like it was a vision of how humans could be. But the thing was that it was my reality. That was my reality. I was bringing that reality into my life by going out there and experiencing it. We can tell, we can feel, all of us, that things are changing very quickly. We are seeing evil unmask itself to the world, and many people still do not want to see it for what it is. But the energies of the earth are rising to meet the heightened energy of humanity at this time. And if you're someone who has been close to nature, who has been an empath, who has been very spiritual and close with God or intuitive with yourself, you have access to this energy at this time. It is more readily available to spark off whatever beautiful realities you're ready to create in your life. And that's not something I would have thought during this time. Jesus told us that he has overcome the world. What does that mean? Think about that. Really meditate and reflect on that. When he said, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." I'm going to be talking about that more in the future. People have told me my whole life, "Adele, how come you're so lucky? Why do all these things happen to you? Why do you always get exactly what you want?" And I remember just thinking, I'm just lucky. I always had the belief my whole life that God loved me and God was looking out for me. And off the top of my head, I can think of a couple of things. I delight in little things in nature. I was telling a friend how we had gone on a hike and we found the last rose that still had a smell. We had these beautiful Alberta wild roses back home in Alberta. And usually by this time of year, they're kind of starting to wither up a bit and they don't smell that well. And my friend found one that still looked kind of fresh, and we smelled it and it still had that beautiful rose smell. And I remember it was the most beautiful thing. And to me, I love animals, and if I see a particularly beautiful tree, I'll go up to it and I'll observe it with gratitude. I'll think about it. So I would say gratitude for the small things, learning to live in the moment, paying attention to your inner world. That's how you start to be able to hear the voice of God. So that is my message for now. And I'm going to be making more videos in the future. When you're away from YouTube for a while and you come back, oh man, my subscribers are dropping. That's because I think a lot of people signed up and they're like, oh, how to make money in 10 minutes on the internet. Click, they subscribe. And now they're like, oh, who is this chick? Oh, she's talking about spiritual things. Oh, no, it's just an instant unsubscribe, right? So every time I post a video, I lose a lot of subscribers. My views are definitely down because it's going to take me a while to get back on that algorithm wave, right? Because once you're riding that wave, you got to keep it up, right? You don't just, take 2 years off because you're dealing with trauma. But that's what I did. If my subscriber count keeps dropping, because I was at 97,000 and now I'm at 93. You know what? If I get down to 90,000, when I hit that landmark last time, I didn't celebrate it. Then we'll have a 90,000 subscribers celebration. I do think it would be pretty lame to just kind of leave things off when I'm so close to getting that play button, that YouTube play button plaque. So maybe I'll put a shot at that and we'll see what happens. Make sure to click like, subscribe this video, and share it if you feel like it's useful or it can brighten someone else's day. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.